The Eldar Empire, vast and ancient, was once the pinnacle of technological and psychic achievement in the galaxy, dominating the stars through a blend of their mastery of the warp and their peerless craftsmanship. They seemed destined to rule indefinitely. But what if this towering civilization had not been brought low by its own hubris? What if the fall of the Eldar never occurred? In this alternate timeline, the galaxy would be profoundly shaped by the continuation of the Eldar Empire. Their survival would likely have forestalled or entirely prevented the rise of many of the other galactic powers that came to prominence in the vacuum left by their collapse. Without the catastrophic birth of Slaanesh and the annihilation of their core worlds, the Webway, an intricate network of extradimensional pathways, would remain under Eldar control, allowing them unmatched dominion over interstellar travel. The ability to move entire fleets across the galaxy instantaneously would ensure their military and logistical superiority over any rivals. This Eldar dominance would have fundamentally altered the development of humanity and other species. The burgeoning human civilizations of the Dark Age of technology, though advanced, would have been no match for the Eldar at their height. The Eldar would likely have suppressed human expansion, either by direct conquest or by restricting access to key resources. Even if humanity had reached for the stars, the Eldar might have treated them as little more than an upstart race, subject to their will. The notion of an Imperium of Man would never have come to fruition, as the Eldar would never have allowed a rival empire to challenge their supremacy. Moreover, the psychic energy of the galaxy would have been far less turbulent without the birth of Slaanesh. The Chaos Gods would still exist, but their influence would be significantly diminished. The warp storms that plagued human expansion during the Age of Strife might never have occurred, sparing humanity centuries of regression. However, this relative stability in the warp would benefit the Eldar most of all. Their psychically attuned nature would thrive in a galaxy unmarked by the devastating effects of Slaanesh's emergence, allowing them to harness their abilities to even greater heights. The preservation of the Eldar's cultural and spiritual ethos would also ensure that their technological advancements continued unabated. Their mastery of Wraithbone, their knowledge of the stars, and their ability to manipulate the warp would have reached levels incomprehensible to most other species. Entire worlds could be reshaped at their whim, and their fleets, already unmatched, would likely become nigh invincible. Their psychic technology, which they had refined over millennia, would allow them to interact with reality in ways that other species could only dream of. The Eldar Empire might have established a utopia for their kind, though one maintained through the subjugation of lesser species. While the galaxy under the Eldar might seem peaceful from the perspective of cosmic stability, the reality for other sentient species would be far more grim. The Eldar's inherent arrogance and sense of superiority would likely result in the oppression or extermination of any race that posed a potential threat or failed to serve their purposes. The Orcs, with their chaotic and destructive nature, would be a perpetual thorn in the side of the Eldar, but one that they would work tirelessly to contain. The Necrons, had they ever reawakened, might find themselves immediately confronted by an Eldar war machine far too powerful to overcome. The Eldar's deep hatred of the Necrons, born of their ancient wars, would ensure a swift and merciless response. However, the most profound changes would be felt in the warp itself. Slaanesh's absence would not only reduce the chaos and danger of the Immaterium, but would also leave a significant void among the Chaos Gods. Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle would continue to vie for dominance, but without the excesses of Slaanesh's influence, the psychic energy of the galaxy might lean towards a more balanced state. The Eldar, as the primary psychically attuned species, would likely remain vigilant against any incursions from the warp. Their heightened sensitivity to its fluctuations would make them the galaxy's natural protectors against chaos, provided their empire remained united and focused. The potential for internal strife within the Eldar Empire, however, cannot be overlooked. The same hubris that led to their original fall could still manifest in this alternate timeline. Their extraordinary longevity and psychic power might make them prone to decadence and infighting, especially if their dominance went unchallenged for millennia. Even without the catastrophic events that birthed Slaanesh, the seeds of their downfall could lie within their own cultural arrogance and excesses. Yet, it is also possible that the Eldar, having learned from their near collapse in another timeline, might recognize the need for greater humility and responsibility. If the Eldar Empire embraced a more enlightened approach, balancing their pursuit of perfection with respect for other species, they could become the galaxy's stewards. Such a role would see them fostering the development of younger races, guiding them towards harmony rather than domination. In this scenario, the Eldar Empire might usher in an unprecedented era of galactic unity and prosperity. Ultimately, a galaxy where the Eldar Empire never fell would be vastly different from the one shaped by their ruin. The Eldar's continued dominance would alter the trajectory of every other species, suppressing some, uplifting others, and reshaping the galactic balance of power. Their survival might bring stability, but it would be a stability rooted in their singular vision of order and perfection. The extent to which this vision aligns with the interests of the galaxy's other inhabitants would determine whether the Eldar's reign is remembered as a golden age or a dark chapter of oppression. As the millennia passed, the uninterrupted reign of the Eldar Empire would create a galaxy dominated by their aesthetic, cultural, and technological imprint. Entire sectors would reflect the organic, flowing architecture characteristic of their civilization, with towering wraithbone cities and star-spanning networks of energy pulsating with their psychic might. Lesser species would likely be relegated to peripheral roles in this grand design. Some might exist as vassals, tightly controlled and allowed limited autonomy under the watchful eye of their Eldar overseers. Others, perceived as threats or nuisances, would face relentless eradication. Humanity's fate under an unfallen Eldar Empire is particularly intriguing. Humanity's development as an interstellar power was shaped by the chaotic interregnum of the Age of Strife, during which warp storms and chaos ran rampant, isolating colonies and fostering desperation. In a galaxy stabilized by the Eldar, humanity might never have reached such heights of technological regression and religious fervor. The Emperor of Mankind, a unifying figure in humanity's fragmented history, might have emerged, but his role would be far less prominent. His dream of a human-dominated galaxy would clash directly with the Eldar's established dominance, leaving him in a position of uneasy compromise or outright conflict with their empire. A direct confrontation between humanity and the Eldar would likely end in humanity's subjugation or annihilation. The Eldar's mastery of the warp and superior technology would allow them to crush human resistance with surgical precision. The vast Imperial war fleets and legions of genetically enhanced space marines that defined the Imperium of Man's rise would never come into existence, as the Eldar would ensure that humanity never reached such a position of strength. Entire human colonies might find themselves forcibly integrated into the Eldar domain, their cultures warped or extinguished in service to the greater whole. This dystopian perspective, however, is not the only possible outcome. In some interpretations, the Eldar might adopt a paternalistic view of humanity, seeing potential in this younger race to contribute to the galaxy's development. The Eldar, despite their arrogance, are capable of a deep sense of responsibility for the universe. They might guide humanity's psychic awakening, protecting them from the worst dangers of the warp while ensuring they remain subordinate allies rather than rivals. In such a scenario, humanity might reach levels of development unimaginable in their fragmented, war-torn history, though always under the shadow of Eldar superiority. Other Xeno species, such as the Tau, would face similar challenges in a galaxy where the Eldar Empire endures. The Tau, whose rapid development is a hallmark of their history, might never rise beyond their homeworld and immediate stellar vicinity. The Eldar, monitoring the nascent Tau Empire, would likely recognize their potential threat long before it materialized. If the Tau were deemed too ambitious or dangerous, the Eldar would extinguish their growth before it became unmanageable. On the other hand, the Tau's ethos of cooperation and diplomacy might earn them a niche as junior partners in an Eldar-led galactic order, provided they abandon their aspirations for independence. The galactic ecosystem would also bear the mark of the unfallen Eldar Empire. The Orcs, perpetually at odds with the Eldar, would remain a constant challenge. However, the Eldar's ability to predict and manipulate events might allow them to confine the Orcs to specific regions of the galaxy, using them as a tool to suppress other potential threats. This strategy could backfire, as the Orcs' chaotic nature makes them an unpredictable and uncontrollable force. Nonetheless, the Eldar's superior planning and technological edge would likely keep the Orc menace at bay, at least on a macro scale. The Tyranids, enigmatic invaders from beyond the galaxy, present an altogether different threat. The Eldar's heightened psychic sensitivity would make them among the first to detect the Tyranid swarms. Their knowledge of the webway and mastery of advanced weaponry would give them an edge in preparing defenses. However, the Tyranids' sheer numbers and adaptability would present a monumental challenge, even to an empire as advanced as the Eldar. The resulting conflict might strain the Eldar to their limits, forcing them to unite their disparate factions and employ every resource at their disposal. If any civilization had a chance to turn back the Tyranid tide, it would be the Eldar Empire at its height, but such a victory would likely come at a staggering cost. The Necron resurgence, another existential threat, would also unfold differently in this timeline. The Eldar, still possessing their full power, would perceive the reawakening of the Necrons as a continuation of their ancient wars. Unlike in the current timeline, where the Necrons exploit the fractured state of the galaxy, they would face a united and vigilant Eldar Empire. The war between these two ancient foes would be titanic, potentially reshaping entire star systems. The Eldar's mastery of the warp and their ability to predict Necron movements through their seers would provide them with critical advantages. But the Necrons' relentless nature and technological parity would ensure a protracted and devastating conflict. Within their own society, the Eldar's continued dominance might foster both unity and division. The path system, designed to discipline their volatile emotions and prevent excess, would likely remain a cornerstone of their culture. However, the lack of an external existential threat, combined with the arrogance inherent in their species, could lead to factionalism. Splinter groups or rebellious elements might emerge, challenging the rigid hierarchies and cultural dogma of the Empire. These internal struggles could either weaken the Eldar or, conversely, drive them to greater introspection and reform. If the Eldar Empire managed to maintain cohesion, their ultimate destiny might lie in the transcendence of their physical forms. With their unparalleled understanding of the warp and their mastery of psychic energy, the Eldar might seek to create a galaxy-spanning Gestalt consciousness, uniting their race in a state of eternal unity and harmony. This act, however, would likely come at the expense of all other species, as the Eldar might require vast amounts of psychic energy to fuel such an endeavor, energy that could only be obtained through the subjugation or destruction of other sentient beings. In this alternate history, the galaxy would be defined by the dichotomy of Eldar brilliance and Eldar tyranny. Their unchallenged dominance would bring a semblance of order and stability, but it would be a fragile and deeply inequitable order, built on the suppression of potential rivals and the exploitation of the galaxy's resources. Whether such a galaxy would be better or worse than the fractured, war-torn reality we know is a question that defies easy answers. Let me know if you'd like me to complete this scenario.